right. Hello, everybody. This is the Gaming Bounty Board podcast, and today I'm joined by Jared Bair of Reload Magazine.
Hello, hi. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, man. How you been?
Fantastic, very, very good. Very busy, but very good.
Oh, I bet. I have no doubt about that. How's it going with Reload Magazine and all that?
Good. We're Reload's interesting. Whew. We so for people who don't know, me and several of my friends run a retro magazine, and the when we established this magazine, Reload,
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
the second one a bunch of us were involved with, right? And so Reload is it's been a learning exercise because it's running a magazine, publishing a magazine, printing and shipping a
Right,
magazine,
right, right.
writing a magazine. Is just every single aspect of it has been we didn't really have guidance on it. Like
Yeah,
everybody who did everything was figuring it out the first time. And so obviously it's taken a lot longer than it should have to do issue 1 and issue 2. Issue 1 we did through a publisher. We didn't like having a relationship with a publisher, went to self-publish and then had to figure it all out. And it's
well, I didn't notice
it,
that you had. I didn't know you had a publisher for the first one.
we
Um,
did, and that's why it went a lot smoother. But in the end, well, okay, so it went smooth on our side, and then the second it needed to be distributed, it did not go smooth. And so
okay.
we broke up with them and
Nice.
decided that we would figure it out on our own, and we did. But it's like every step of the way for issue 2 was, oh, we didn't know about that, oh, we didn't know about business licensing this and that, and we didn't know
Yeah, yeah.
about like paper density, and oh man, so Reload's going well now.
Yeah. But that's
But the
good. That's good to hear.
process of getting there was a really really humbling thing for us, and there was a lot of frustrated meetings, and now there's a lot of relief as issue 2 has gone out into the world, and through all the shipping challenges and
Yeah.
stuff, having to figure out there's a lot of complicated stuff with shipping that I
Oh,
didn't
yeah, no,
realize.
I have
So
no doubt.
um
Yeah, because you guys haven't
dude,
done physical yet. I mean, you have limited physical, right? But you haven't like made it available to everyone.
so yeah, it's the physical copies have only been through Kickstarter. um we have extras that we purposefully printed so that we can distribute them through a store, and that's kind of like the next part that none of us
Yeah,
want to talk about, because we're like, oh, we're gonna have to figure out
yeah,
that,
because that we
dude.
asked we were talking to Melancholy on Quad
Mhm.
Damage the other day, and we were asking him about that and everything. And I'm excited though when you guys do get around to physical copies because I definitely want to grab some as soon as I can.
Yeah, and we're like we vary on purpose, like have an allotment for that,
Yeah,
and we reprinted like issue 1 with better paper, uh and and so we have that stuff.
yeah, yeah.
We just we are in process, and that's probably the next door we need to open, that all of us are just kind of waiting for, like, a calm in our lives storms to actually do.
Right, because
So,
you guys are. I mean, you guys are doing reload basically for free. You know,
yeah.
and it's what, like, it's more of a side thing for each of you.
It's
Um,
interesting because the way Reload ended up happening, right? Um, like there's a whole dramatic thing that a lot of us don't really enjoy touching or talking about, that had to do with our previous magazine we were
yeah,
involved
I,
with.
I
And
heard a light bit about that, but we
yeah,
definitely don't need to
and
go into that.
we generally navigate around that, set our
Yeah.
sails to go around it, but it was a hard process, right?
Oh yeah.
And so as we went into this was very much a passion project for us. The first magazine was as well, but then those of us who had it as a passion nonprofit sort of thing, where we were just like, hey, I like this community, I want to be involved in it, let me write, let me play games, let me establish these connections, be part of this community. um when those of us who were in that position and not in a necessarily leadership position stepped into a leadership role on Reload, we kind of just kept that heart, because we realized, like this isn't going to be like it's not gonna, without a great deal of effort, it's not gonna make anybody any money. And when you get into the time where it does make money, um it it's like, is it worth the squeeze, and then does it kind of taint what you're doing?
Right, right.
So it has that heart of, like, like growing up, I always heard about like all these cool hardcore kids would have indie mags that they worked on, like music
Mhm.
mags, and they'd make them in their house, and
Right.
like they didn't make any money off of them. They was just this thing we are extremely passionate about. And we have kind of just taken that heart of it and we've applied it to everything, right? Like we made it so that we don't even make money on merch. Like who cares? We have the covers are really cool. We have some incredible art
Yeah.
and like we set our merch store for zero profit and it's just not really it's not really a thing that we care to make money on because we genuinely are just thankful to be part of that larger community.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, it definitely seems to be something that you guys are all pretty passionate about, and I think it's something that's pretty important for the industry as a whole, because I think that, especially with the whole debate around physical media and stuff like that nowadays, but magazines they're still a thing, but it's mostly only through like Game Informer as far as games go.
Yeah, yeah.
And even then, it's like kind of they're trying to push you to do the digital magazines more than physical and
Mhm.
stuff like that. So I think having something like that when you guys do get around to that physical
Mhm.
stuff is going to be pretty
It's
important.
the physical stuff. Yeah, the physical magazine's really interesting because it's kind of if we really say it like it is, very few people sit down and read a whole magazine. Like
Right.
when I grew up, I would get PC Gamer and all that stuff, and I'd read like 4 articles, and then it would sit on my counter. But I
Yeah,
bought
I
them
feel
all.
that.
I wanted all of them. I wanted them for
Yeah.
the covers, and I wanted them for the individual things. Um, and that was like when we realized that like that's kind of the habit that people do have, like they like
Yeah.
collectors types of stuff. We were like, yeah, let's just make it free digital as well. Um, that
I
way
think that's a pretty
we
good
can
idea
point
too.
it well, yeah, because our goal is to point at an individual article and to be like, hey, you guys can share this. Like let's say for example, Ghostware or something, right? Ghostware exists. It's a great game. I love it. It's a lot of fun, and we can point like we the developer or us or the
Yeah.
writer or somebody who's passionate about it can point at this article and be like, hey, in the magazine, there's an article. If you're interested, here it is. Here's a link to it, and then it takes them there. They can see that individual article, and then they'll see the pages that are next to it. And so what it does is our goal in making it a free magazine, like digitally, is that people will be attracted by the individual things that are in there, and it will draw them to the game that's next to it and that's next
Right.
to that,
Yeah.
and then they like all of these guys who are working hard on games. This is just one of the various things that exists where they kind of cross pollinate
Right.
with each other, and because that's kind of what our ultimate goal for the magazine is, the community. The physical thing is cool, and we want it because that's kind of like it's kind of a cool trophy piece. Like
Right.
you want it on your wall, you want it there, and it's neat to have, and it kind of has a kind of a draw to it. But like
Yeah.
the ultimate goal of Reload is and always will be, like trying to be kind of a gravitational force, kind of an undercurrent within like that retro inspired FPS.
Yeah. Yeah. I think you guys are doing a great job at like just, I mean, helping further build this community of like, especially around the boomer shooters and all the new
Mm.
resurgence of these kind of games. Which that kind of brings me to like, how did you get involved in like streaming for 3D Realms and doing
Mhm.
Realms Deep and all that kind of stuff?
Okay, so I got man, how do I everything happened at the same time, right?
Right. It did seem
Um,
to like happen. Well, see, I didn't even really know who you were right at first, but then I saw a little bit about like it was like Reload first starting, and then I saw you doing some streams, and then it was like Realms Deep, and I was like, who is this guy? Like,
yeah, yeah,
he's
yeah, yeah.
doing
It's
everything.
interesting. Because so I went through this major shift in my life. So like everybody else, I was doing like I how do I say this right? I hate this term. I hate I you'll learn I hate the term content creator. I
Oh yeah,
despise it. I
me
stay
too.
away
Me
from it. I
too.
tried to
Me
stay
too.
away from it in general because it has a
Yeah.
very specific meaning and it almost has people when they are concerned about creating content have this obsession with creating content. It's their passion. And for
Yeah,
me,
and
it
I,
wasn't.
yeah, and I think content is like it's become
It's
known
this
more
weird
as making something that's just kind of, I don't know, by the books or like made for profit or like,
yeah,
you know
it's
what I mean? That
stuff.
kind of thing. Yeah, it's just
Yeah,
stuff. It's not
there's
like
you're it's
passionate. It's not,
it doesn't
whatever.
the word content doesn't mean anything. And so but here I
Yeah.
am having been I ran an AT&T for a while, and before that I was a car salesman and all these
Right,
horrible jobs
right.
where you have trouble if you don't want to screw people over, you have trouble existing in that environment. And so I'm doing this stuff, and I start streaming, right? And the streaming goes really well. Um, like really like for I kind of caught that perfect time period. I think it was 2016.
Mm.
Where people like it was still easy. I wouldn't want to start streaming now. Like that's hard. I know that there's
Right.
tons of people who love streaming and they love doing it and they want to start it and they dream about it. I I started in like this really good time period where you could still catch some rhythm with it. And so I'm streaming and it's going pretty well. I have an opportunity to become full time after doing some really tight math, and I have an opportunity to move out of Oregon to Colorado, live with my family in a family home that my family owns. Like it's kind of
Mm.
this place where all of us go to land, and we had the opportunity to have like 6 months with no rent, and so it was like, okay, we're making enough doing this that I could probably do. Like I could probably stream full time as long as I am conscious and doing the math and as long as we're pushing and making the money and doing all this stuff, right?
Yeah.
And so I start streaming like, I'm streaming like 40 hours, 50 hours a week. I got one kid at that point. And I start kind of making inroads within I guess within like turn-based strategy stuff, the normal stuff that gets views, darkest dungeon, and then like some Dark Souls stuff and just all the stuff that you can like strategically get views. And so I'm doing that stuff
Yeah.
and I'm loving it and it's a lot of work and around that time period I start becoming kind of aware. This is probably like 2018. I start becoming aware 2018, maybe 2019. I start becoming aware of like this retro FPS community
Yeah.
that I
That was
like
actually, I mean, that was
and
kind of right around the time that it started too. It was like 2016, 2017, right
yeah,
around
yeah. So
dusk and
it's
stuff like that.
exactly. So everybody
Yeah.
was always telling me play Dusk, play on Fury, play and I'm always like, I don't know, man. I play Quake once a year. I play Doom once a month. Like I'm fine. I'm okay. I'm whatever. And and I think the one that finally got me, and this is right when everything finally like triggered for me. It's like this. There's like three events that end up taking place around the same time.
Yeah.
Is Graven comes out in early access,
Okay.
and like everybody else, I think like everybody who grew up, everybody who's my age thinks they were huge Hexen fans. That maybe or maybe not, right?
Right. Right. Right.
But we all think we are. Most of us never beat it. And I'm like, I want to play Graven, and I understand like the way streams work is it's an early access title. I have 1 day to stream it and meet new people. Like that's
Right.
just what it is. Like the way Twitch works is if there's a new game and it's a certain size of a game and it's going to have a certain impact, you have like a day and then
Yeah.
that's it. And so I was like, well, I'm play Graven. I'm playing day one because that's the only chance I have to play.
Right.
So I play it and I meet, it's not an abnormal thing for publishers and developers to stop by streams, but I meet the guys from Fulcrum. I meet Scarecrow. I think that day probably as well, David, and and we just kind of hit it off and I start talking to those guys and I think I remember at that point George, who's with 3D Realms now, George was like, "Hey, do you want to do some stuff for Fulcrum?" I'm like, "Yeah, sure. That sounds great." Um, and so yeah, how did this even happen? It's so point is I make this connection with these guys, and
Yeah.
then I invent a job. Uh, like so there's this so with streamers, right? Streamers always do this thing where they're like they don't want to do free work. Obviously, you don't want to necessarily want to do free work. But they want to you always have people streamers saying like know your worth, know your value, know your worth, know your value, and then they overestimate
Hmm.
their personal value. You'll have a guy with 30 viewers who wants to charge somebody $400 to play a game.
Yeah.
And so like I look at it and I was like and I think at that time George was like, "Hey, you want to do some stuff for us on a Steam page?" And I kind of thought about it. And I was like, you know what? If they're going to use a Steam page, I'm just going to charge them. I'm going to charge a flat rate. Like I'm just going to say, hey, here's the deal. You want a video on your Steam page? It's going to cost you this much. I'll make it for you, but here's my goal and here's my objective. Is a Steam stream. You have to have the understanding that Steam is not like Twitch. Steam is not
Right.
like YouTube. People on Steam don't want to see a bunch. They don't want to see you stop and have a talk with chat. They don't want to see you thank a
Yeah. It
subscriber. They
just
don't
wants
want
to
to
be
see
like
that.
a live stream, just you
Well,
playing and doing your thing.
yeah, and how long have you if you've ever gone to a Steam page and you've seen a
Yeah.
stream, how long do you look at that stream?
Not very long.
5 second? 5
Yeah.
seconds?
Not very long.
Yeah.
I do see
But
you on a lot of them these days, though.
yeah, and so like you get about 5 seconds, and so when I'm talking to these guys, I'm pretty sure it was Fulcrum at that. Um, 1C, I think that is what their name was.
Yeah,
And
sounds
so I'm
familiar.
like, okay, I propose to you that I will make you this stream, but the goal of this stream is going to be to actively engage uh, visual elements, things that are going to look cool, and I'm going to be conscious of that the entire time. So a rocket flies by, I'm going to trace that rocket with my vision because these create impactful moments that a viewer may see, and you want as many of those as possible, and you don't
Mhm.
stop, and you continually have this momentum, and just having a person on there draws people's eyes, and then if they see something cool, they picture themselves doing it, and
Yeah, yeah.
so I propose to them, and say, yeah, this is the deal. I'm going to charge you this much for this. Okay, yeah, that's fine. And then I go, oh, that worked. That was interesting. They okay, all right, that's very strange.
Yeah.
And then I did it with another publisher and another publisher and another publisher. I just made a flat rate
Yeah.
Steam video job that augmented what else I was doing. And so through that, starting to know people, run into Zach Murphy from E1M1 at that time. Zach and I hit it off. We're just kind of chatting, and he's like, "Hey, you want me to send you some magazines?" I was like, "Yeah, that sounds great," because I was on vacation somewhere like with family and bored out of my mind, and
Yeah.
so he sent me a bunch of magazines, and so all of a sudden I like simultaneously I connect to the guys that are associated with Raven,
Mhm.
and I'm associating with the guys that are at magazine, and then simultaneously I began to so okay, this is a really really important part of it, right? I know this is like a big long thing, but this is
Oh,
like
you're
really
good.
important for people. Is the I'm going through this major change in the way I handle myself online simultaneously. Um, I had identified this personal poison that I was partaking in as a content creator, and this is why I brought up that term. Um,
Yeah.
there is this habitual thing that people do, and that I was is when you don't have something to say, generally people lean in towards over evaluation, and that typically is negative. Um,
Yeah.
and I just identified that I was doing that. And that's a very streamer thing to do. Is to be like, look at this thing. Yeah, I don't know, man. I would do this better. And it's people get called armchair game devs and stuff like
Yeah,
that.
yeah, yeah,
And
yeah.
but generally the thing that is most impactful is when people are negative. And so
Yeah.
I'd watched a guy play Dark Souls 3, and I watched a guy say that Dark Souls 3 was bad. And I was like, how do you say that? Like it might
Yeah,
not
yeah,
be
yeah.
a game you like, but it's good. It's a well-designed game. And he made an argument about why it's bad, and it's just because he was filling the air. And I went, do I do that? And I started thinking about it. And as I'm working in the industry and getting to know people, people are coming to my streams more often. Um, and developers are coming to my stream, and during this time period I'm still evaluating and not realizing there's developers in my stream, and then I would see tweets from them or messages from
Mhm.
them that made me realize, like, oh shit, I'm doing this and it's awkward because these people are coming to my stream. And I realized that those things that I was saying and those things that I was doing, um, I didn't actually mean. Not to the
Okay.
degree that I thought. Like
Right, right,
I'd
right,
be
right.
like, "Oh yeah, this thing sucks." Does it really suck? No, it doesn't actually suck. Oh, this thing is bad. Is it actually bad? No, it's not actually bad. What do I really mean by that? And so I had this kind of awakening where I was like, these people are in the room with me. They worked hard on this game. There's a thing that maybe isn't executing a certain way, and it might be my fault as a player. It might be that I didn't read a tutorial,
Yeah.
or I didn't notice something that I didn't notice a game design thing that was trying to teach me a principle, and I'm getting punished, and I don't like that. So I say the game is bad because I'm punished, and so
Right.
I'm realizing I'm falling into this thing, and so I'm making this big adjustment at this time, and over the course of like several months, as I'm forming relationships with publishers, I'm forming relationships with guys in the retro shooter community. Um, I I become much more specific in my critique with the goal of improving something. and understanding what the developer's intent is. And so getting on
Right.
board with the vision and then being able to express, here is why this didn't land on me. And so that's when I realize that is also a marketable skill.
Yeah.
And so I start working with publishers, doing things that we create another job, which I've called it's like a general customer perception report, and I start doing those for a bunch of publishers and indie devs, and generally I was charging publishers and doing it for free for indie devs because I don't like to charge people when they're working their day job and trying to make a game at
Right.
night. That
Try to do
just doesn't
something on
make
the side.
sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't want to do it. And so I start doing these things, and this becomes a really interesting job for me because I form these really relationships with people where I'm sitting down, I'm going over the first 15 minutes of their game, and I'm saying this is why this is not working. This is working well. And so it's funny because like I'm always really careful when I mention games. I try not to mention games I've worked with because generally it's under friend DA stuff, and you'll find me in like special thanks credits and stuff.
Right.
And the goal is not to get in credits. The goal is not to get credit. But there's
Yeah. Yeah.
several retro shooters over the course of the last several years that we changed the beginning of the game, and they end up doing decently well most of the time. And
Right.
people enjoy those, and so it's like, okay, so this now has become a thing, and so all of these are happening at the same time. Um, and because of that, because I'm writing up these reports and meeting people, somebody says to the Motherload, my friend Tyler, somebody says, "Hey, have this guy on your podcast. He does these things." I'm like, "Okay, cool, yeah." And this is all within like several months' time. Like just
Yeah.
all of a sudden, I've changed what I am and what I do, and opportunity was there, right? And so I go on a podcast with Tyler. It was really funny because he messaged me. He was like, "Hey, you want to meet tonight?" And I thought he was just meeting me, right? And then he's like, "Oh, okay, we're going live in 5 minutes." Um, and that's Tyler in the Keep. He's the guy who started Realms Deep,
Right.
and so him and I form a close friendship that evening, and all of these pieces have just come into place. And so as E1M1 falls apart, and as we start Reload Magazine, and as Tyler's getting busy, a little too busy to do Realms Deep, he asked me if I would volunteer some time to do it. I get involved in my first Realms Deep, which is the second. Is it the
I
second?
think so.
I forget how
Yeah.
many years it was. Yeah, I think it's the second
I
one.
think it was the second
I
one.
get
Yeah.
involved with that, and as a volunteer, and I volunteer my time to that show, um, and that ends up being something I really enjoy, and we executed it well enough that it became here, and so everything just kind of flowed, and from this goal of sincerely supporting communities, improving them, and
Yeah.
then not taking advantage of people, but looking for, like the money at the places that can afford the money, and making sure that you're supporting the people who can't or shouldn't. And so
Yeah.
that's why all of this, that's why like very quickly I just kind of seem like I came out of nowhere, is because I kind
Right.
of
Yeah. Yeah.
did. But it's because all of the things that usually would like be in a line, they all just kind of happen together.
Yeah. It's kind of I kind of see there's some correlation. Like when I started getting game developers and like other YouTubers and stuff on my podcast, or even what we're doing now with Quad Damage, and some stuff like that. Man, it's weird. Like you start asking people to do a thing, and then when they start saying yes, you're wait. All I gotta do is just ask people.
Yeah,
These are
It's really great.
these are just people. You know what I mean? Like
Uh-huh.
it's weird, but it's yeah. And I actually, when I first, because you know Rafael Colantonio.
Yeah, I do. I
Yeah.
do.
Okay. He was the
It
first.
makes stealth games, if I
Yeah, an
remember.
Arcane,
Yeah.
Dishonored, stuff like that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was the first person that I interviewed as far as game developer. And I think that I used his strategy that he talked about one time to talk to game developers, which was to offer them, be like, hey, if you have a spare 10 to 15 minutes of your time, I could talk to you. And I used that, and then it worked. And then it was like, what? You know what I mean? Like, that's
Yeah.
possible. And so that's been a pretty cool game changing thing that I've kind of used for pretty much everything going forward for just like YouTubers, and just
Yeah.
other people. And it's pretty cool.
And it absolutely works because people love to talk about what they love.
Yeah.
And so if somebody actually does have the time, like it generally is
Yeah.
a thing. It's like, yeah, of course I'd love to talk about that stuff. I love it.
Right. Yeah. Um, and so I guess we'll move on to 100 Acre Wood, since that's a big one. Is that
Yeah, this
is that something that's in somewhere in the near future? 100 Acre Wood?
Kinda.
Kinda.
So for anybody who doesn't know, here's the gist and the summary, right? And the story behind how we got to this. So 100 Acre Wood, we're making a Winnie the Pooh horror game. And here's the interesting thing about that. Um, is this game we started it out like you would like okay, when people hear that they go, "Oh man, what can't people be creative?"
Right.
How come every time something hits like how come like when something becomes publicly owned, like
Well,
everybody
I
just
mean, they
has to go
did.
make it
You
scary?
guys did announce it around the same time Blood and Honey happened, so.
We did not mean to announce it. We actually got forced to announce it, and
Oh
I'll explain
wow,
that.
wow,
It's
okay.
we did not intend to announce it until a little before release. We announced it about a year earlier than we wanted.
Oh wow.
And that was a big frustration for us because it made us show our hand before it was ready, but we had
Right.
and this will make sense in a second. But yeah, so you have like Winnie the Pooh go public, right? And anybody can do anything they want with it within certain constraints and all the difficulties of you just can't take any inspiration
Yeah.
from Disney. You got to take everything from A. Milne, and it's only one book, so Tigger's not in there,
Yeah.
and you have to ask yourself all these crazy questions like why do you want to make Eeyore gray or donkeys gray? No, they're not. They're usually brown. Okay, so why do you want to make them gray? Oh, it's Disney. That's why I want to do it. Yeah, I can't do that. So like, there's this process of understanding
Yeah.
how like what you can do and what you
A
can't,
lot of
right? And
legal
so
things you got to kind of dance around.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, it's crazy. And so I'm too busy to be working on any other projects. And at that point I didn't have a skill set to do so necessarily outside of like creative direction. And I was like, I
Yeah.
don't want to. So I hit up a friend and I said, "Hey, here's a general concept. I think you can make some money." And he goes, "Yeah, I'm a little busy right now, but I might." And so I'm like, "Okay, cool, yeah, pack it away, whatever." And 6 months later, he hits me up and he's like, "You know what? I want to do it, but I want to do it with you." I'm like, "Okay, I don't know if I have time, but let's look at it." And so
Yeah.
as we started talking about it, it's funny because the accusation is generally like, and we don't address the accusation because of everything I'm going to tell you momentarily. The accusation is like, "Hey, you guys are not creative, and you're only doing it for the money." And initially, yes, and but the problem with that is as we started development on the game, we realized we weren't really happy with that. We wanted to make something real. We wanted to make something properly creative. We wanted to tell a story that was interesting.
Yeah.
Um, and so
Well,
we
passion
quickly
doesn't tend
leaned
to,
out.
or you know what I mean, like the
Yeah,
fuel for something that you're not really passionate about, it's not gonna last as
yeah,
long
and
as something you are.
money's cool. Money's really cool.
Oh
It's
yeah.
great because you can do wonderful things with it, and you can benefit the world and take care of all the people in your life and all this stuff, right? And so, yeah, that can motivate you. But then we were like, well, why don't we make a game that has like a meme selling potential, but is also good? And so we, after several months of kind of early prototyping, we kind of decide on a direction, and we
Right.
start kind of poking at it and working hard, and most of it is stuff on paper, um, and it's so we're making this thing, and trying to think which way I want to go here. Why we have to? I won't say why we have to reveal yet. So the thing that really is driving me at this point, like in that point in development, was I'm like, I want to tell a story. I want to do something good. And I remember my favorite narrative experiences that exist are games that are typically non-narrative. And I'll kind of explain that
I know.
by
I,
maybe
I
giving
think
the
I know what you're talking
example
about.
of Bloodborne is a great example, right?
Yeah.
Like Bloodborne, you started out and you're like, wow, this game is about werewolves.
Yeah.
And you're enjoying this werewolf adventure, but it's a little different, and there's some curious stuff, and there's things that make you ask questions, and why does that thing look that way? What happened
Yeah.
over here? What's going on with this?
I think that's some of
And
the
as it
best
begins to,
elements of like Prey,
yeah,
or I don't know if you ever played Little Nightmares.
I didn't. It's on my list.
Yeah, well, those games are like that too. It's where it's even that recent Cocoon game. It's like
Mhm.
the audio visual storytelling. So just like
Yeah,
the environment around you, the music, the sounds, all that,
yeah. Things
tells a
things matter.
story
Things
without
things
directly
narratively
telling you a
matter.
story. Yeah.
Like when you walk past a statue in Bloodborne, that statue exists in a very
Yep.
specific way. it is of a thing and in a location, and there is a meaning for it.
Hmm.
And then why do you have these four statues, but this one over here is different and he's right next to him? Well, there within Bloodborne, there is actually narrative reason
Yeah.
for that, and I love that stuff. And I was like, I want to tell a story like that. Like and so here I'm working with a guy
Yeah.
who has the technical knowledge at that point, and I'm like, okay, so if we're going to do this, we're going to tell a story that seems like one story, but is another story in the end. And it reveals itself appropriately to the inquisitive, but also feels like a full experience if somebody doesn't give a shit. Um, and so that becomes extremely complicated to do
Yeah.
narratively. It requires a thoughtful writer. It requires somebody who understands people. It
Yeah,
requires
and it also
it
becomes a
requires a
an
lot of
interesting
work.
feat from the game design standpoint as a whole too. Like
Yes.
just having the ability to do both of those and have both kinds of
Yeah.
people interested as well.
Yeah. And so we're like, okay, well, let's do that instead. Let's make a game that allows people to engage one way or another way if they desire. Because I know guys who play through Bloodborne and never understand that it's about aliens. Like that's fine. They don't realize that Bloodborne is a science fiction is science fiction adjacent. No, it's a straight up
Right.
science fiction story. Like it's amazing. And so there are people who play through who never understand that. That's
Right.
fine because they still had a full experience.
Hmm.
Um and then there's people who dig into it and spend thousands of hours
Yeah.
reading notes and looking at statues and listening to audio and they find out there's all these story elements that actually were there the whole time
Yeah.
and are actually part of the story, not just implied. They're intended. And so
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, we're doing that, and I'm spending the time to do that. And so I'm working with a partner at that point, and I'm like so here, like let's discuss game design principle. Let's decide what we want. We want the general concept of like not all horror games have to be slow. We want we're retro shooter guys, and so we want it to be fun to move, but we also want to counter that by making sure the player feels appropriately threatened and punished at
Yeah.
the same time. And so we need to have all these balancing factors, and we come up with these concepts that allow us to craft a purposeful experience. And so we're working hard on this stuff. And then a little asset flip drops, somebody else's, and it doesn't get noticed,
A
but
Winnie the
it's
Pooh
gonna.
game or like a yeah.
Yep. And most people still have not seen it because it just did not catch algorithmic weight. And the reason it didn't catch algorithmic weight is we announced immediately, right when
Uh,
that thing got announced. We saw it drop, and a week later we announced. We made a shitty trailer using the temporary assets that we have not
um,
replaced.
this project, is it just like a just not so
It's
great
just
thing?
Yeah, it's really not. And I don't feel necessarily weird saying that because the developer, if you look at his catalog, he's just a quick flipper, and that
Uh,
happens. Like there's people who do that, and they
yeah,
make
yeah.
they make their money, and that's fine.
Yeah,
Um
that's already
and
happening
so
now that Steamboat Willie is public domain.
yeah. There's
Um,
some really cheesy ones, and then there's some great ones that are being made. And
yeah.
and and so you have like this guy. I mean, it's like a low like there's high quality, like there's no, you're allowed to use assets. For anybody who,
Yeah.
I have no problem with people using game assets that they purchased and creating something amazing out of other people's stuff. Great, as long as you're not plagiarizing and pretending it's yours. It's awesome and it's great.
Yeah.
uh and so we see this thing drop. It's late one night. I get a message from somebody, and they're like, have you seen this thing? Like, no. It. And I get on the phone with my partner, and I'm like, well, we have an option, right? Because this is going to catch magazine eyes, because magazine like or media eyes, like digital media eyes, because they need content to make. IGN
Now
needs to
there
talk about
wasn't
stuff.
anything at this point about you guys making with this game at all, right? Okay.
No, no, we were just behind
But
closed doors, not
but in
talking
all
about it.
fairness, that definitely could have completely ruined any and all traction that you guys could have had, because you take
Yes.
this thing that is going to give a bad image to something using the Winnie the Pooh license, and then
Yeah.
you guys come along and they're like, "Oh man, it's just another asset flip
Yeah,
garbage
we're the
game."
second, exactly.
Yeah.
And so and we do pick up a little bit on that because we have to
Yeah.
use temporary assets to make a trailer. But we're like, you know what? We need to put our feet down on the ground and say, I see that you're working. Like, just let this guy know that this is ours. Like, we're doing this.
Yeah.
And so we do. And we announced, like, we're talking like that was a year before we really wanted to.
Yeah. I
Um,
mean, I'll be
and
honest,
it was
even for a thrown together trailer, it had me interested. So, and the
eh,
fact that you and others were connected to it already kind of got me a little more excited because I'm like, hey, these guys are in the community. I don't think they're asset flipping. You know what I mean? I think this is
yeah.
going to be something else, and it looks good enough at this point that I'm interested.
Yeah, and we're really like it's one of those things where and we've gone through some staffing changes and we're in kind of this weird flux state right now
Yeah.
where I've brought in another guy to work on like his specific job. He's a good friend of mine. Actually, we haven't even announced it publicly, but my good friend Sheridan Roberts, um he is working on like asset replacement where we're saying this is an asset
Yeah.
that we need a custom asset for this. We're using this placeholder. We want
So
something actual of that
right.
actually
Okay.
ours.
So he's making
And so
assets.
yeah, so he's doing
Okay.
assets, and he's a coder and all that stuff. So
Heck yeah.
it's like, but like he's got like all that stuff, and
Yeah. Yeah.
then my friend Greg, who has been part of the team for a while,
Yeah. He's the one
is
over there working on another game that I saw.
yeah, and dude, I'll tell you, Nomad's killer. He knows what he's doing, and so
Yeah.
Greg's wheelhouse is general gameplay programming and refinement of mechanics,
Okay.
and then I over the course of the last year learned to work within Unreal Engine, and so my general job is to create the stage everything takes place on, which is really
Yeah.
nice for me because initially, as I was in a creative director role on it, and I didn't have the skill sets, I would have to sit down with a guy who knew how to be an engine and craft frames and be
Right.
like, listen, like, because being micromanaged by somebody sucks. So if I'm like, hey,
Yeah.
you need to move that moon over like 3 inches, that lighthouse needs to be over here, this body needs to be over here, this blood needs to be on the wall higher, like that stuff is really, you don't, it's not a good experience
No.
for an armchair game dev to sit there and be like, do this stuff. But over the past year I was like, no, I'm just going to learn all this stuff. And
Right.
so that's become my
So
role.
you guys are making it
Is
in Unreal?
Yeah, it's in Unreal 5.
Okay.
And given we're
When
designing
you
it
dropped the
visually,
trailer, I was assuming Unity.
that was Unreal 4. I don't think we'd moved to 5 yet, but
Okay.
it also, the trailer, like, we've completely changed like the
Everything.
we've completely yeah, it's like you could tell they're the same, but at this point we've just advanced so far beyond where we were. We've actually leaned very purposefully into making it um like have controlled pixelation at distance,
Okay.
and so you have some beautiful, sharp, bright, vibrant colors in the front, and then you have some very purposeful pixelation at distance,
Mm.
and so visually the game looks considerably different than it even does in the trailer. But
Cool.
our big concern right now, especially as we've shifted team members, because again, the original guy had some health issues and some
Yeah.
life challenges that he needed to go take care of, that really need to be like his top priority, like really need to be. Like, our concern at this point isn't and this is going to sound funny, but our concern at this point isn't marketing.
Right.
And I know that's something that I know you have these Twitter accounts that go around and say that indie games, if you don't market them, they don't sell. And it's like, yeah, that's true, kind of. Or
Yeah.
in most cases, that's true.
But
But
it also has
there's
to do a lot with
opportunity.
like individuals involved with said
Yes,
thing and what they're
the
connected
topic,
to and the
media
topic and yeah,
connections, and
a
and
lot of these
and
things.
so we get to leverage a lot of our media connections as it gets to a point where
Yeah.
we want to show the state of the game. And so in the end, what it amounts to is we have this game that we're making, that it's a horror game. It is purposefully it's a game where I hold very strongly to something that pushes against the idea of you need to do everything in a game. Like, I'm not an achievement guy. I used to be. Ever since when I 100%ed the Ezio trilogy, it burned me out. I never want to care about achievements again.
Yeah.
And it
I've always
changed the
been
way that I
kind of
think.
middle ground. Like I like 100%ing some games,
Mhm.
but I don't like 100%ing every video game. And I think a
Yeah.
lot of people look at 100%ing and achievements and trophies as kind of like it's a job, you know what I mean? More than playing a video
Yeah.
game.
Well,
And
like
so,
I think the greatest game of
yeah,
all time is Prey 2016. The
but it's
greatest game.
2017, you mean?
2017. 16, 17. The newest Prey
Oh,
is
I
the
agree.
greatest game of all time.
Oh,
And
yeah. Virtual high five. There we go.
yes, I'm telling you, it is.
Dude,
It's.
it's so good.
I think it's the greatest game of all time. And
I would agree with that.
and the I am probably not going to play through it 4 times. I don't need to see everything. And
Yeah.
that's because the narrative experience is my narrative experience.
Yeah.
It's your narrative experience is different than mine. But so my
Yeah.
contact with that game and that story is meaningful. I had 100% of a game experience. Did I
Yeah.
see everything in the game? No, but I had a full experience when
Yeah.
I played it.
Yeah,
And
it's one of those
so
rare games too that are, I mean, it's designed with so many things that you'll never see unless you play
yeah,
it multiple times, right? I mean, I've played through it
you can't.
twice so far, and it's like 50 hours per playthrough so far, right? And
Yeah.
I've started other playthroughs, but there's still things that I haven't found, and there's still like
Yeah.
the possibility of things because there's so many small details in there. It's just something that rarely ever happens with games in general, and I don't think there's
Yeah.
going to be a game like Prey 2017 for a while. Like I don't think there's
Yeah,
going to
and
be anything to
it's
that level for a while.
and so there's this principle behind that, right? Where they're not concerned if I find everything.
Yeah.
They really aren't. They're fine with me missing everything. And
Oh yeah.
Dark Souls has the same thing. And Bloodborne, when I played through Bloodborne, I had no idea that I missed half the game on my first playthrough. It didn't bother me
But they
because
had
I
a
had a full
competent
experience.
enough experience at the base level
Yeah.
that
I
you
didn't
still
miss anything.
yeah, you still got like a full experience even if you didn't,
Yeah.
go off the beaten path.
And so as we're designing our game, we have this horror game where we're okay with you missing elements, and the things are designed to create a personal narrative, to where the experience is your experience.
Right.
So we give the player a lot of freedom in reversal and the way that they go and the experience they have. We force them into making decisions like you're going to go this way or you're going to go this way. What are you going to do? And you're probably it wouldn't match the game to try to go both ways necessarily. Like it's okay, you made a choice,
Yeah.
and the idea behind all this stuff is personal narrative, personal experience, and that is a thing that comes with all sorts of design challenges, right? Because you still have to have somebody have if they choose this way can't be less rewarding. This way has to
Yeah.
be rewarding. There has to be some sort of experience that they go, oh, that felt good still.
Mhm.
I felt good. That felt great.
No matter what
I saw
direction you
that.
go in, you have to have some form of progression and reward and like
Yeah,
some if
and
it's
sometimes that's
story
just
or
a
whatever.
visual element.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's just a visual element.
Ooh,
Sometimes
there's a
it's a
cave
particular
drawing
experience.
over here or something, or there's like
Yeah,
a button with a thing or something. Yeah, just
yeah.
something.
And
It
what
doesn't
does that
matter.
and what does that mean?
Yeah,
And in our game, it does mean something.
that's cool.
And so that's our goal is to create this world that that you can engage with in whatever level you want, in any depth you want.
Yeah.
Where traversal is fun. We have some major influence. It's really funny. Our probably our biggest influence. How do I say this without making it sound like it's just this game? There's okay, so our influences are pretty wide on this game. We
Right.
wanted to have a game that had a nerve-wracking stealth system. We also wanted to continually have the ability to reset the player through forcing them through different parts of the level
Yeah.
that break that feel. So it's not always tense and you're not always being pursued. And you're not always hiding. And so we went, well, what's fun to do? Traversal's fun. Platforming is fun. And so there is a game that kind of really changed the way that we play games. It's I think it's I want to say it's French, man. I don't know. It's Beaten Brutal, Beaton Brutal. And it's a game that is about climbing to the top. It is a first person Jump King style game, and it's mechanically Minecraft. Like Minecraft parkour is a big
Okay.
thing. It's huge. It's
Yeah,
just
yeah.
executed in this game in a way that has some horror elements.
Okay.
And it made us go shit. I really like jumping. I like jumping from this thing to that
Yeah.
thing and grabbing it and feeling successful. And then I like moderate punishment because it gives me it makes things like me nervous.
Right.
Like, am
Yeah.
I going to make this jump? And what's the punishment if I don't? Um, and so we have this design balance where our goal is to reset and go from horror to feeling to feeling a different type of nervousness. And then we also want time periods where the player might feel powerful only to feel less powerful shortly after. And
Okay.
so again, like this horror game is one for us where rather it started out as a thing where it's like, yeah, let's just make some money and kick out
Right.
this Winnie the Pooh horror thing. And now it's like, you know what? I really want to have a narrative that is interesting, and I want to have a world that is interesting, and I want to have something that's fun, and I want to
Mhm.
have something that feels different than other things. And then at that point, you're like, well, do we really want to do this Winnie the Pooh thing? And then you're like, yes, because it actually enhances what we're doing. Um, it enhances what we're doing and allowing people to engage on a surface level
Yeah.
for this thing. And yeah, sure, it'll help with the sales and the marketing,
It
absolutely, without
definitely
a
it
doubt.
definitely seems, I mean, it's almost explaining it seems overly ambitious in a way, right? But it's kind of cool how you
And
guys got
yeah, and yet it's really streamlined in its execution.
right. You got
And that's
like the
been
platforming, shooting, feeling powerful but also powerless, and a lot of environmental storytelling and stuff like that. I
yeah,
think it's pretty
and
cool.
it's a world where you get to travel. It's a world that's based upon. I mean, the beautiful thing is the A.A. Milne book has a map, and so it's already laid out, and all it required was
I
us
actually didn't
zoning
know
it and
that.
saying, yeah, it actually has a map of it has a map, and so
Hmm.
it serves as a guide for regional
Yeah.
things, and it allows us to create regions that like one of our initial visions was one of my favorite moments in gaming is the first time I went into Stranglethorn Vale in World of Warcraft.
Yeah.
You go from it's dark. I think it's Darkshire. Is it Darkshire? It might be Darkshire. Somebody will correct me.
Yeah, somebody
But you
will.
go from like this you go from this dark wooded area
Yeah.
to this beautiful jungle, and there's this transitional moment where you feel the environment change. And when we started making this game, we were like, I want that.
Yeah.
I want to go from region to region. I want to go from this area to a place called the Gloomy Place, and I want to feel the shift in environment. And
You
so
know,
as we have this,
kind of, I'd say, Journey to the Savage Planet. Have you played that?
I haven't.
Oh man, you need to. It kind of it does that. Like it has a lot of different biomes, and you kind of
Yeah,
seamlessly traverse from one to the other, and it's like a there's like a change in music that's kind of gradual, and like the
yeah.
visuals change, the colors change, and it's
And
pretty
the
cool the
nice
way
thing
they
is,
do that.
as you're designing these things, like you get to control that.
Yeah,
You get to dictate what the player's experience is in certain moments. And so that's like the type of thing we're doing is something that feels like a survival horror game, something that feels like it has meaningful traversal and rewards depending
right.
on where you go and what you do, and lots of things to discover, and things that narratively can make sense with engagement. And one of my design principles that I operate on is the idea of pinch points, and that oddly enough is an arcane design principle. Is
Yeah,
the idea that I want you to have freedom here, but when you get up here to this opening, everybody's going through there, and so
yeah.
it gives me the ability to control a player experience for
You
a
have
moment,
the
but also
same
grant freedom.
destination, but you have different
Yeah.
ways of getting there, kind of thing.
And so you really take advantage of those moments and you dictate what the player experience is
Yeah,
during those times. And so we have a lot of those. And so it's a lot of work. And in the end, like honestly, at this point, we have no idea how long the game's going to be. I we don't want it to be too long. It shouldn't be too long. You
right.
like experiences like this can be 4 hours and can be satisfying. They can be six
Yeah, I
hours
mean
and
it's
be
kind of. I mean
satisfying.
it's funny we mentioned Prey and Arcane multiple times, but it's also like the immersive sim design. Like
Mhm.
most immersive sims could potentially be beat in like 5 to 10 hours, give or take.
Yeah.
But if you really explore and do other things, I mean, you could push 50 hours or so.
Yeah, like
So,
what's over there? I mean, do I and that's again the idea of like a personal narrative experience. Like I
mhm,
recently played through Thief 1 and 2,
mm,
and the amount of rooms that I never entered into, like there's stuff that I didn't have to go to. Like
mhm,
I don't know what's over there. I don't care.
right,
I didn't need to. Like, and so we've taken all of those ideas, and then at the same time really done our best to streamline them and to protect against bloat, and
Right.
scope creep and all those things that developers don't like to do or don't like to have and
Oh yeah.
accidentally do. And so that's been like part of my big push is as the team gets creative, we have to weigh it and go, okay, is this thing worth it?
Hmm.
Is this worth the extra time this takes? Or if we're gonna say yes to this, are we saying no to something else?
Right.
And so I end up making a lot of those calls, and we're really happy with the way it's gone. Because again, as we started a game out, that kind of like starts like when we started making it, it was like, okay, well let's do the Choo Choo Charles we wanted, and now it's like, no, it's nothing like that anymore. Like
Right. Right. Right.
it's a game that we've made some bold decisions and that we've really done. We've made a game that we want to make, and it's really dumb that it's a Winnie the Pooh game because like but it's not really, but it can be.
Yeah.
It'll be
It's
a
definitely an
thing where
interesting choice, right? Like as soon as I saw it, I was like, "Damn, I grew up with Winnie the Pooh. I gotta
yeah.
play this. Even if it sucked, I gotta play it."
Yeah, and so it's going from that to being like, like how do you narratively stick enough to it that people feel like you're respecting the source material, because we
Right.
really want to do that. But at the same time are creating a proper story, and I mean, I don't mind saying like it's a cosmic horror story, with
I
appropriate
got vibes
cliche
of
and all
that.
that stuff, and it's the cosmic horror story or science fiction stories at home. And so how do you serve both of those in a way that is going to be meaningful to a person who plays it? And so finding
Right.
that balance has been really enjoyable for me, because in the end I'm like, okay, we could strip Winnie the Pooh from it, it would still be a good game, but I'd
Right.
rather have that. I want that there because of a few narrative examples, or a few narrative shifts that take place,
Hmm.
and we've done a really good job of sticking to source material. Like the beautiful thing about the book is we're allowed to use parts of the book, and so we can take literal text from the book, we can instill it, we can just blast it into the game, we
Yeah.
can rearrange things, we can reinterpret things, so that they mean other things, we can
And are you
reference
staying
events that
pretty
take
accurate
place.
to the locations within the
Oh
map?
yeah.
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 Okay.
Yeah. It's we're leaning heavy into themes that would be implied by the, and so
Okay. Cool. Cool. Cool.
you have Rabbit's Den, and so of course that's going to be an underground area. Um, you ha-
How many characters are usable?
so everybody but Tigger was available, and technically, Tigger becomes available. Is he available now? I don't know. We haven't concerned
Not sure.
ourselves with him. It's within the
I think
next,
it's
like,
soon.
it
Yeah.
already just happened or it's within a year, but we're
Yeah.
like, I don't care, because we're already so far into this that it's
It's
like,
all
yeah,
right.
we
It's all right.
can
We
always
get the
patch.
Tigger expansion pack later on.
Yeah, I mean, it's something that we could do, is we could
Yeah.
add something, and it's like, yeah, so we're really excited about it, and it's just kind of a funny thing for us to be like, yeah, this is a Winnie the Pooh thing, um, but it is more than
It's
that,
more than that at
and
the same time. Yeah.
yeah, I mean, it definitely is,
And
and
are we
we're
gonna
just
see anything more on it coming up anytime?
yeah, I think
Kind of.
we're kind of holding our cards close to our chest just until we're done with our graphic overhaul.
Okay.
Again, we still have like some placeholder assets, and the hard thing about the way we've sectioned off development
Yeah.
is, as I'm making levels and crafting player experience, there's a lot of like, hey, I'm throwing a block over here because we're gonna need this asset for this, and so I know that's not on your list for like 2 months or three
Right.
months. Like, you do these other things, and so it's
Yeah.
really an idea of like, it's kind of like somebody comes over to your house and you like hide all the laundry, like that's the kind of experience. If we show
Right.
stuff, that's the experience we're going to have right now. We don't want people to see our dirty laundry, and again, like, where normally there's a marketing concern for a team, there's less of one here because of the marketing strengths for mostly like internet media, and because
Right. Right.
internet
Right. Right.
media, like, they're, of course they're going to cover it, like,
Yeah.
and then we have connections with them and stuff, so it's I don't have to like really hope IGN's going to cover us, because they will.
Yeah, and they already have, right? So they're definitely
Yeah,
gonna follow up on it. Um,
exactly.
yeah. I
So
mean,
yeah,
I'm
we'll have stuff
definitely
kind of soon, as we
yeah
have a few more key elements come in. We're doing an animation overhaul because we really had to kick that stuff out. Our animations in the trailer are not things we're proud of, but they were on a time limit. We had to get
yeah.
stuff out so that we kind of established like this was our project. And so it's stuff where like do I want to show you Winnie the Pooh now where he's walking like a stick man, or do I want to show you? I mean, and people that like
When he's
we've
finished,
since
yeah,
yeah, or when he's closer to finish. Do I want to
yeah.
show you our cultists now? I do. They're really cool. Are like they weren't in the trailer at all. We have these really
Right.
cool cultists, and
I
we've
was
taken a
curious
lot of
about that. I
influence.
was like, I figured they would have to be something like that in there.
Yeah, we have a bunch of stuff like that. But um, do I want to show you that they lack a death animation, and when I hit them, they just ragdoll into the sky in really funny ways? I kind of do, but do I want that to
Right.
be like the thing that represents us? And it's like, no, I don't. And so it really is a matter of like when we have these things, and what we experienced previously is when you have to push for marketable elements to be
Yeah.
refined, you miss you really fall off the horse when it comes to improving mechanical elements. And so it's like the team and I are either gonna spend a month making everything look really good,
Hmm.
or this next month we're just gonna keep working our asses off on all these other things and then do that stuff. And so there's priorities, and it's kind of navigating that
Gotcha.
challenge.
Yeah, for sure. Um, I think we were looking to try to get you guys on quad damage at some point, which we'll
Yeah,
see
yeah,
how
yeah, yeah.
we'll do that at some point.
Yeah, I
Um,
think that's one of the things where like I think I agreed to that because I was like, well, this kind of gives us a thing like a time goal to like have a build that
yeah.
we're comfortable showing more than internally. Because right now I can run around and do all sorts of fun and cool
Right. Right.
stuff,
Right.
but I'm not going to show that stuff to people yet
Right.
because you're going to see my underwear laying on the
Yeah, yeah, it's definitely cool. I'm excited for when we do that as well. But because I'm actually pretty impressed by quad damage is growing pretty quickly, and it's
It's good. It's
doing
great.
pretty
It's good
good.
to see.
It is good
Yeah,
to see.
I've perused a bit.
Yeah,
So
yeah, yeah,
I watched Eric's episode with you guys.
yeah, yeah,
Kind of get like skated through it.
yeah. Well, sadly, that one I was the one playing the game, and my my laptop struggled a little bit.
Oh, dude.
I was pretty heavily delayed and all that, but it still was a pretty good time.
Yeah,
He
yeah,
was a
yeah.
great guest. So
Yeah, he's become a very close friend of mine. Honestly, like he's kept me sane through an awful lot of stuff with the mag, and
oh yeah,
not just within the mag's world, within like other things that I've gone through over the last year. He's become a very close friend.
he's a really cool guy. I first started talking to him because of Hayak shows,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
streams and stuff like that. So yeah, um, yeah. I think that about does it as far as the questions that I have regarding all that stuff. I'm kind of on a little bit of a time crunch today, but
Yeah, no problem.
um, yeah, no, I mean, but you answered everything wonderfully. I'm definitely excited to see more, and definitely thank you for coming on.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I'm happy to
Means a
make the
lot.
time.
Yeah. Um, yeah. So I hope to see more, and I'll be looking forward to seeing you on Quad Damage. And
Absolutely.
all right, man. Thank you a lot. I'll
Cool.
see you later on.
Thank you very, very much.
See you, man.